Ladies and gentlemen, hello, I'm Sojourner Kai, and welcome to this 3,000 subscriber Q&A video, where recently we passed 3,000 subscribers on the channel, which is a milestone that I never really thought that I would reach because of some history with the channel and everything. I wanted to, right out the gates, just say thank you for subscribing and enjoying, or maybe not enjoying, my content. You know, viewing and subscribing and joining the community all the same. I do very much appreciate it. Last time that I did a Q&A was back in 2018, and a lot of things have changed, and I wanted to do something to celebrate and something to also get a video on the main channel. Now, if you wanted to know where I've been, there will be a pinned comment down below, or you can go back in my community posts and also read some more information there. But I don't want to delay anything too much longer, so let's just get right into the Q&A on Discord, which is where most of these questions were asked. And if you want to join the Discord community, there's of course a link in the description below. So the first question comes from Shadow Diablo. If you can bring any champion league over to Legends of Runeterra, who would it be? Now, for those of you who are not aware, I used to play this card game, and still kind of do play this card game called Legends of Runeterra, which was a card game that was based off of the same universe as League of Legends. And so this is asking me a champion in League of Legends that I'd like to see in the card game. And for me, that answer is probably Bel'Veth or Malzahar. With Kaisa and all of those characters, we have a lot of references to the existence of Bel'Veth. How's it going? And in case that's not serious enough for the video for some odd reason, my question would be, what is your favorite fictional story? It's going a lot better than it used to. Everything will be explained in the pinned comment down below, but things compared to then and compared to now, I feel a lot better with where I am presently, and I'm excited for a lot of things and excited to work on a lot of things, including this video after I'm done recording it. And my favorite fictional story is, this is an interesting way to phrase this, because story, the first thing that I think of is like a fan fiction or a book, but that can also extend itself to movies or even stage plays. I will stick to the book and fan fiction side of it, but maybe just the book, because I don't want to admit to the kind of fan fiction that I've read in my time. So I think my favorite book that I've read is probably either Stephen King's Fairy Tale, which I read like a year and a half ago, and I really enjoyed that book, or The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. It's a very, very interesting book, and I do highly recommend it to anyone who can get their hands on a copy. Number one, what motivated you to do content creation? What kind of videos do you plan to make in the future? And do you plan to revisit old videos with a different stance than you had at the time? These are really interesting questions in terms of the approach that I have to content creation, and all of them have kind of long-winded answers, but in interest of keeping this video to a shorter length, I'm going to be less verbose. So for the first one, what motivated you to do content creation? And it's really a combination of a bunch of different things, because I've always had my interest pulled in many directions when it came to creating content. You know, and initially when I first saw YouTube stuff, the first things that I saw were things, this channel called Balloon Shop, which still has their videos up today, and they're like surrealist, kind of XD also random 2008 internet humor. Some of their videos are still good to this day, and I still reference them to this very day. But that inspired me to want to create comedy sketches, and then I watched Good Mythical Morning a lot back in the day, and that inspired me to want to make like a talk show kind of thing. And then in 2013, 2014-ish, I discovered gameplay YouTubers. But all of these people then inspired me to want to do gaming content creation. And then around that same time, I started watching Jeremy Johns, who is a movie review channel, so then I wanted to do movie reviews. You know, it just kind of blossomed out from there to the point where I'm now this weird mosaic amalgamation of all of these different interests, where I like being able to talk about life things, and that's why I like to stream. And so that's like the Good Mythical Morning part of it. I like to play games on stream. That's the gameplay commentary videos that I saw in the past. I like to talk about movies. I like to make critiques of movies and video games, and that's the the reviewer side, the Jeremy Johns, the Total Biscuit. And yeah, so I think it's a combination of a bunch of different interests that I wanted to make for myself, and I just kind of continued pursuing that. What kind of videos do you plan to make in the future? I have video essays that I've been writing. I actually talked about this on stream yesterday, well, the day before I recorded this. I have video essays that I have been writing. I have a couple that I want to record and edit. I have one that's actually on the editing timeline right now that's about an hour long. That will eventually come out when I finish editing that. And I'm hoping that after this Q&A video is done editing, I'll start working on that project and getting that in the pipeline and hopefully have it out before my birthday in October this year. Do you plan to revisit old videos with a different stance than you had at the time? I have thought about this a couple of times. If you go to my channel now, you'll notice that there's a lot of videos that have the word old in brackets ahead of them. And that's because they are from a bygone era where I'm not particularly proud of my scripting. I'm not particularly proud of the presentation visually of the videos. Like the editing technique isn't up to my standard nowadays, and the script is really not that good, and the recording isn't all that great. I don't want people to see those videos and think that that's the standard that I have now. I want people to know that, like, this is an old stuff, like an archive, but I'm not going to delete them because, you know, they're still part of what I am now. So in some of those old videos, there are titles that I would like to revisit, but with the way that video essays are now and video game critiques are now, you have to have them kind of themed around a conglomerate of ideas. So if I were to say, make a new review on Terraria, I'd probably tie it in with Minecraft or the whole survival crafting genre, and then make a video talking about how it holds up today compared to its popularity around a decade ago. How many times have you moved in your life? Oh God. So a move for me is that I've spent at least a month in a location using that as my main base of operations, and I have been there for reasons other than simply leisure. So if we're using that rule as a kind of baseline as to what constitutes a move, I think I've moved 22 times in my life, and I'm 25 years old now. Sam asks me, when are you shoutcasting LCS or any new updates on shoutcasting or VA opportunities? So some of you might know that I voice acted as Jace in Dumbs's project Arcane in a Nutshell, and I have been asked to and have already sent my lines in for the Act 2 video of that. So that's like the main VA thing that I've done recently, which, you know, isn't all that massive, but it's still a voice acting talent thing. And for shoutcasting stuff, actually, yeah, now that I'm moved into this location that I'm living at now, I am hooked up with a production team that outsources people to work for a variety of Valorant tournaments, and so I am hoping to work with some of the Valorant tournaments there. There's a massive Rainbow Six Siege tournament for Midwest Collegiate Esports that is going to happen between the months of September and December, once a week, a best of 3. And I'm going to be shoutcasting consistently for that group as well. Those are the two big things. So I'll of course, like, keep you guys updated on when I'm casting, because I probably won't cast every single week, but I'll probably cast most weeks, and I'll give you guys links, and you'll, if you're in the Discord, you will hear about it. Do you enjoy or have you tried other popular card games to scratch the LOR itch? Ever since LOR, no, not really. And I think it was because LOR was the first one that really grabbed my attention for a couple of reasons. The first one was that the game was extremely free to play, and so I was able to earn all of the cards at a base level, and therefore I could really easily transition into a bunch of different play styles. I could play aggro if I wanted one game, I could play combo, I could play mid-range, I could play control, and all of that was super easy to pivot between. Whereas with games like Magic, for example, it feels like I have to invest a lot of money into getting one specific archetype to work. But then if I'm like, oh, well, I actually don't really like, I don't know, green-black decks, which I kind of am talking out of my ass when I'm talking about colors. And like, you know, what if I don't enjoy that? Well, then now I've dumped hundreds of dollars into a Magic deck for a deck that I don't fully enjoy, on top of having to actually learn the game. You know, so that aspect didn't really fully appeal to me. And the things I've tried Yu-Gi-Oh!, I've tried Hearthstone in the past, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Hearthstone, to me, the reason why I didn't like them is because they were ugly. I've played Pokemon. I actually have here on my shelf 2 binders full of Pokemon cards, but Pokemon as well as a TCG, I also don't find all that interesting to play competitively, and that's not because of the appearance or anything, but that's entirely because the lack of interactivity in that game compared to LOR. It just doesn't appeal to me quite as much. Would you enjoy, this is also from Rio, would you enjoy doing casual game reviews? So I would like to do casual game reviews, but the problem is that YouTube is not actually very conducive to doing casual game reviews unless you can get the game basically on day one and get a review for it out on that specific week that the game is released. Otherwise, if you go past that point, the game either needs to gather some level of notoriety, or you need to lump it in with a bunch of other topics in order to make it like a themed video. Any chance for community nights in games you personally enjoy, like DBD or R6? You know, DBD community nights could work out, yeah, if there are people who are around for that. Rainbow Six is a bit of a tough game for me to get into with the community because I take the game pretty seriously overall. I want to be a good ranked game player. I want to be good at that game. And so inviting people in who might not take it as seriously as me, and it's of no fault of their own, but we're just not on the same wavelength, and I don't want my competitive brain to get in the way of someone else like just clearly screwing around. But Dead by Daylight I'd probably be down for. Zeno asks, how many lines can you do? As many as I'm offered, and discreetly. You know, there's like a certain point where it gets a little bit clogged, but I'll be all right otherwise. Kitron asks, how much bread do you eat on a daily basis? I eat no bread. I have a gluten allergy, so I actually can't eat any sort of wheat product. What do they call it? Oven, when you oven the cold food of out hot eat the food. Hi, Doof. Great question. Why did I call it beef when I'm not stroganoff? Do you have any life goals, and if so, have you accomplished any yet? I think my life goal was to complete my college degree, but I'm not going to be doing that anymore for a while now. So I think really my life goal is to be able to make some sort of living off of content creation at some point in the future, and I'm working towards that. And my other goal is that in the next few years, I want to be able to fly to Taiwan to take an intensive language training course at Donghai Dashi, which is a university in Taichung City. I remember most of my basics of Mandarin and everything, but my tones are bad and my grammar is horrendous, and I don't know, I can't like talk about a lot of the higher concept stuff. Like this video I couldn't do in Mandarin because my pronunciation, my knowledge of the language isn't that high yet. And so I really want to be able to get to a level of fluency with that language again because I just love speaking it. That's like a couple years out just because of budgets, because of time constraints, because I've got a full-time job lined up. By the time that this video goes up, hopefully on Tuesday, I will be starting a new job working at a car dealership. We'll see how that goes. I'm like kind of 50-50 on it being a good job. It pays well. And that's all I can really ask for at this point in time. Career question, how differently are you perceived in different facets of your life? Hi, Orc. Personally, my family still thinks I'm cis, whereas friends in person and online know much more. I have not told anyone that I haven't at least met online prior that I am, presenting non-binary. Most of my friends and family, they're unfortunately pretty queer-phobic overall, and I don't want to drive that rift between them because I still care about those connections that I've had for a long time. I recently discovered that like, oh, actually I do kind of think this way about my gender identity, and that presenting that sort of change, especially when it's only been within the last 8 months, would be a bit of a shock to relationships that I've had my entire life. And so I haven't really told a whole lot of people about that offline, especially. If you don't feel comfortable answering that, any memorable books that you've read and what were they about? The Name of the Wind is a book about a guy called the King Killer because he kills a king and starts off this whole civil war in this fantasy world. And he goes into hiding, fakes his own death and everything. And then this chronicler, this person who writes down people's life stories, goes out, on his travels and randomly finds the King Killer disguised at working at a tavern. And so he says, I know that you're the King Killer. I want to write your life story. And the King Killer responds by saying, okay, you can write my life story, but it'll take me 3 days to recite it. And so each book in the series is supposed to be 1 day of him reciting his life's story. So the first book is day 1, the second book is day 2, and the third book, which is never coming out, would be day 3. And I really like the first book because it does such a good job at setting everything up for the fantasy world. It's very, very well done. And so that's why I'd recommend it. Really well made. Mike has a whole list of questions here that I'll answer pretty much as quickly as I can. First off, who are you? I am Kai. I make video essays. I do voiceover narration and I cast Rainbow Six Siege, League of Legends, and Valorant sometimes whenever people ask me to do that. Is there a story behind your chosen name? So Kai is a shortened version of my legal name that literally everyone, my parents, my teachers, everyone who doesn't know me in like a legal capacity calls me. When I was growing up, I moved around a lot. And when we were moving around, my dad called us the Four Sojourners. So Sojourner Kai is just like me taking that name, Sojourner, as my surname, and then Kai, like kind of like a Asian style of saying a person's name, where the surname is the first one that you usually repeat. How old are you? 25. What got you into content creation, and specifically this form of it? So I mentioned earlier all of the different influences that I had on the content that I've done over the years, because there was another channel called Creative Avenue that you can go look at, where you can see my first movie reviews and comedy sketches that I wrote and acted and directed and edited. Specifically, this form of it kind of came out of an admiration for the content creators YMS and I Hate Everything. Those general, very long form reviews of movies, which is what they mostly operate their content around nowadays, was something that was really fascinating to me, you know, actually going into the specific details of every single component of a movie, because it's like, when you're doing a movie and you're doing a overall critique of it, sure, you can do like the surface level stuff that you explain to your family and friends, but you know, really how much more can you dig into that topic? How much more can you unearth? And that's what I started doing, is like, okay, well, here's this topic, here's how I feel about it. What more can I expand upon it? And so these videos keep getting longer and longer, because it's like, oh yeah, this thing I remember reminds me of this thing, and then that's tied to this point here. And so now I have these scripts that are easily over 45 minutes long, when before I would hardly break 20 minutes, maybe even 10 at a time. You used to stream, do you plans to pick it up again? If you do, will you strictly Twitch or YouTube, or simultaneously? I will try to simul stream. I'm not going to do that right away, but it'd be easier to upload things to the archive channel, Sojourner Light, if I'm actively streaming on that channel as well. And so I might do like a simultaneous stream, but I feel like I'd need a third monitor or something in order to make that really work. So it might just be Twitch for now. And I'll be doing that regularly every Wednesday and Thursday, at least every Wednesday. There's a whole schedule on the Twitch channel right now that will explain the times that I'm going to be there. And that's just like coincides perfectly with when I'm waking up and when I have time in the mornings on Wednesdays and Thursdays, which I have been given off by my full-time job. If you do stream, do you think you'd stream your process? I don't think so. I don't think that an editing stream would be particularly interesting for people who are probably looking for me to be just the Dead by Daylight or variety game content. Maybe if there was like some evening streams that I want to do, then yeah, I could do that. But for the ones that I generally do plan to do from here on out, I'll probably just be playing games for it, because, you know, it's fun. It's a thing to do. Do you have any pets? No, I don't. My family has a collection of pets. My parents specifically have a collection of pets back at their property, but I don't have any of pets of my own, no. Would you still love me if I was a worm? If I saw you drying out on a concrete driveway, I would grab my hose and put it on the mist sprayer just to make sure that you don't dry out. Have you found the process of making a video has gotten easier with experience? I think that a lot of the base stuff of editing a video has gotten easier. I understand where layers are. I know where my effects and presets are. I know how to put an adjustment layer on things and make easy transitions and where all my shortcuts are. So all that stuff, that base stuff, is really easy for me to do now. But the hard part for editing, the section that actually takes up the most time, and this would also be the reason why I wouldn't want to do editing streams, is looking for source material. So finding clips that I need, finding the green screen effect or the sound effect, and like digging through YouTube results or other like web pages to try and find the specific image. That always takes the most time. And the other thing that takes the most time is the fact that I rewatch something so many times, because sometimes my brain goes, hey, this isn't finished editing yet. We need to watch it again to make sure that it's actually edited to the degree that I want. And so that's tough because that ends up when I get these longer videos or I get a video that I don't want to do the same thing over again on, my brain then defaults to being like, we gotta, you know, find something new to add on top of that. And so the experimentation and the new things that I keep trying to add does take a lot of time. So it's kind of like running, right? Like you can get faster at running, but it never gets any easier because you're just always trying to reach your limit with that. How long does it take to produce a certain amount of video? For example, an hour per 10 minutes of video. It's hard to say because of the different types of videos that I make nowadays. So for example, the Dead by Daylight commentaries that I've made in the past and will continue making now, they usually take from start to finish around 3 hours to make. You know, 45 minutes to play the games and then about an hour to edit the whole thing and then uploading it and making a thumbnail and making, you know, quality control, making sure that there was no editing mistakes that I made in the video takes the last little bit of time. So from start to finish, it takes me around 3 hours to get that all done. And those are 30-minute videos. So it's, I guess that is like technically an hour per 10 minutes of video. But then when it comes to the video essay stuff, again, it's like looking for the right sources, making sure I'm doing the right effects and everything. And that used to be around an hour per minute of video. So for example, the Danganronpa videos, those probably took me 120 hours. And that doesn't include the scripting process. That doesn't include the research. That doesn't include me going back and revising everything and making sure that I have the right clips and stock images and stuff to put into the video. So I don't know, I would say around a minute per hour of a video essay, but I think that with the way that my lifestyle is a lot healthier now and I'm not procrastinating nearly as much, it will probably be a lot less than that nowadays and I can get things done quicker. That's the hope, at least. Politics aside, do you prefer living in the States or Canada? I prefer living in the States, partially because the weather is a lot fairer. There's not tundra, you know, everywhere, and it doesn't get nearly as icy cold. Although Victoria, where I lived in Canada for a bit, was pretty mild weather overall. But I think the other reason that I really like living in the States is that, you know, transportation and everything aside, I still would vastly prefer living in Asia because of public transportation that's available there. But living in the States, I can go from one community to another, no problem whatsoever. You know, I can go from Portland to Seattle, or I can fly down to Los Angeles or San Diego or Sacramento. You know, I'm on the West Coast, so I'm just listing off all these West Coast names. Canada, you're like, all right, you are either in these 8 bubbles of cities or you're nowhere and there is nothing for you to do. So because of that, I think that the States has a bit more flexibility than Canada does, and hence the reason why I like living here a little bit more. If you won the lottery, what's the first impulse purchase you'd make? A fursuit. Next question. Pecunia asks, how much can you bench and how much can you squat? I have never done either of them, so I have no earthly idea, but you can tell from my arms, like I'm not particularly beefy, you know, like I don't think I could do a whole lot with that. What's your favorite atomic element? I would have to say sodium. I think sodium is fascinating in the fact that it's usually this light metal that explodes when it gets touched by water, but then as soon as you combine it with a couple of other things, so you have sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda, or you have sodium chloride, which is just salt. And suddenly it becomes this thing that's like soluble in water and that can have a variety of uses, like baking soda to clean stuff up, or salt to salt your food. Dante or Virgil, and why? I have never played Devil May Cry, so I'm gonna have to go with Virgil because I feel like the old man energy very much matches how I feel a lot of the time. Do you enjoy making video essays, and will you do more in the future? Yes and yes. Those are things that I have works in progress. Again, an hour-long video talking about live service titles, and then a 20-minute video talking about Dead by Daylight. I found all my favorite shirt buttons from the left. Am I gay? I don't know what this means, bestie. You think Fortnite will ever bring Oswald the Octopus to the game? I don't know who that is, bestie. Beans? Beans. Can you do me a favor and roll me a 4d6? Where's my d6? Okay. Roll number 1 is a 1, 4, 2, and 2. That's 9 in total. Did I do enough damage? Am I through? Did I break his armor class? Actually, I gotta roll a d20 to see if I get through the armor class. All right, so got a d20 here. I'm gonna roll it. Nat 1. So I don't think I'm piercing that armor class. Where can I find and watch the entire Total Drama series? You approach a small child and she asks, "Have you seen my mommy?" Do you help her, ignore thinking it's a trap, or cast thunder spell? In what regards do you want to change yourself and grow? Do not say boobs. I mean, HRT is on the line there. It's a possibility. For myself, I want to actually say that I have made a life accomplishment at some point. Whether that's releasing an album or whether that's finally, getting somewhere with my YouTube stuff, that's really how I want to grow. I want to be able to say, like, I can actually do something creatively and get compensated for it. That's really what I want to do and what I want to change. And I want to pursue healthy life habits that allow me to do that thing specifically. If you ever release merch, can we get an "at least it looks nice" on a mug? That's a good reference to a video that I made that was talking about the problem of sequels. And I had a couple of other ideas on top of that. And then finally, the last question in the Q&A channel on the Discord is, what's your perfect breakfast? I'm pretty simple. I like having eggs in the morning. I'll have a couple of eggs and maybe some turkey bacon and maybe like an omelet or scrambled eggs, so you can mix in some cheese and some tomatoes and a little bit of jalapenos in there as well. So probably that. That sounds like my perfect breakfast. 2 questions on Twitter. One from Afru, the Brit, who asks me what my favorite tea is. Now, I know that the Brits enjoy their tea a certain way, and then Asia enjoys its tea a different way. So I'm going to answer it both ways. For the more British style of tea, I like a good black tea. Like a black breakfast tea is wonderful, especially because you can put a little bit of milk in it, and it's just perfect and smooth. I really do enjoy that. But my favorite style of tea, as they had them in Asia, and that was specifically in regards to these little tea stands, because there's no coffee places in Taiwan. They're all tea stands instead. And my favorite tea from that was Dodorita, which is, if you know the Yakult probiotic yogurt stuff, mixed with green tea and a little bit of simple syrup to sweeten it a bit. And the sweetness kind of brings out the sour flavor of the yogurt a little bit more. And then you add coconut. Thorner asks me, when Noida video? Noida looks really intimidating as a game. I don't own it, so probably not anytime soon. And I have a whole ton of other videos that I am currently working on that I don't want to add to the list at the moment. That'll be it for Twitter. And now we're going to go to my YouTube community post. You're going to be moving soon. In your new place, will you have a specific or dedicated place set up for specifically recording, or do you tend to create one in the future if the means or equipment to do so isn't currently available? Renting out an office space would be quite expensive, and I think that where I'm living now, it's just a room. You can see my bed is just right there. Now, if I end up, in a year after my lease is up at this place, have my own apartment and I can set up in the living room or in a bedroom somewhere that isn't like the place that I also sleep, that would be sublime, because then I can actually have a kind of separation between this is where I do my creative stuff and this is where I sleep. As it is right now, it's a bit crammed, but that is just what I have to have for now. Doe3807 asks me if I do not actually like anime, or is that a meme? Also love your channel. You recently subscribed, but it's pretty dope. Hey, thanks for subscribing. Welcome on into the community. I hope you find my newer stuff better than the stuff that was before. And here's the thing. I talked about this on stream when I first came back to talk about like my actual opinions on anime. And my opinion is that I really like the medium of 2D animation, and you don't get a whole lot of 2D animation in the West that has like good adult themes. A lot of 2D animation, if it's even being made these days, is targeted more towards kids. Cartoons, especially in the early 2000s, you had more simplistic narratives. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch Teen Titans Go because it's just not that interesting to me. Maybe it'll be fun, to see a couple of episodes to see what hijinks and what the writing is actually like, but it wouldn't be something that you can actually glean a good story from. And that's what I enjoy in the media that I consume. But the problem is that a lot of my friends are into shonen animes, and that's what I've been recommended the most, and I don't like shonen, I'm finding out. And so my opinion of anime is very much based off of like, oh, I have a new anime recommended to me, and then it's a shonen title. And that really irritates me. Most of the anime that I've watched is shonen, and therefore I don't like most of the anime that I've watched. But I have seen Violet Evergarden, loved that show, aside from the one episode about the king trying to marry the princess, which was just bizarre. And then the other one that I really enjoyed, which is a little bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, really, is ReZero. And that's not because I think the writing's like particularly great, but because the world building is so fascinating. And it's the same reason why I like Danganronpa, was because the world building itself and the structure that it builds upon is super fascinating and super, you know, out there. It's a style of storytelling or a style of world building that you haven't really seen in a lot of other titles. And so when it's given an animation medium to work in, that's really cool to me. I really do enjoy anime in that way. Most anime, I should say, that I've seen has this problem of being like a shonen title, and so it falls into these really annoying tropes that I don't like. And on top of that, a lot of anime titles also seem to have a problem with like making light of sexual harassment and sexual abuse. And that, I know that that's kind of part of like a thing that happens in Japan, where women are not viewed kind of on the same level as men. And so they are the brunt of the joke just for being a woman. And that just doesn't sit right with me. I just don't like that very much. And so when anime tends to do that, even if it's being like culturally accurate, I'm not too big a fan of it. And that's why I say, like, I don't really like anime, not because I dislike the art style or because I dislike all of the writing, but because the writing that I've encountered, for the most part, tends to be pretty abrasive in my mind. So I hope that clears things up a little bit. It's a bit of a long-winded way to go about talking about it. And I think that about wraps it all up for this video. Thank you all so much for waiting for me to upload. I mean, I moved, I had to take care of myself, and now I'm back, and hopefully back on the content train again. If you check the links in the description, you'll see all of the platforms that I'm currently active on, and if you subscribe, I'll probably have something out for you in the near future. I hope. I'll probably upload something in October at the latest. That's my goal. And yeah. Thank you all so much. Take care, and bye-bye.